Hi again, everybody. Welcome back to Battlestar Galactica. Remember today, I'm dressing up today. I'm in my colonial uniform. I'm just having fun. I got all of them in my closet, so I might as well wear them for something. I'm hardly going to any conventions and stuff nowadays. I try to find something to do with the costuming and all that kind of stuff, but it's kind of slow going right about now. So I figured, well, I might as well. I might as well use them and wear the stuff I've got for these fun videos that we're doing. And today, we're going to go back to the episode reviews. That is right. See, once we started doing it, I was kind of a little bit afraid about these, but once we started doing them, they're pretty fun, right? Because we're talking about, ultimately, the actual shows themselves, the episodes that we all know and love. So today, the number generator on the computer spat out number 12. That's right. And number 12 on the list of the 17 named episodes is Murder on the Rising Star. This is the law and kind of murder and law court drama episode of Battlestar Galactica. And as we start getting into this one, okay, the first thing is this one is kind of a standalone story, right? Starbuck is accused of murdering a rival, Ortega, another warrior, after they were like beating each other up in the triad game. And Ortega's found dead, and Starbuck, looks very kind of guilty. He's nervous. The blaster, his sidearm has been fired. I mean, it's pretty bad, right? It's looking really, really bad. And so, a couple of things with this episode as we start out. And like I mentioned, it's kind of a standalone. The only thing that has some continuity with it is Baltar, right? Baltar was in the fleet. He was already with the fleet after War of the Gods. And so ultimately, as we know, again, spoiler alert, if you have not seen the episode for some reason, stop the video, go watch Murder on the Rising Star, because we are going to do some spoilers in this video, okay? We'll wait for you. Okay, thank you. Okay, wonderful. So now that everyone has stopped and has gone to watch the episode, we'll continue on with our discussion here. And so what happens is, Baltar is a prisoner with the fleet. And ultimately, we know that he's the key, right? He's the one who can identify Charybdis. And by the way, that's the name. I took that name for my character in our Battlestar Callisto RPG and all that kind of stuff. And my backstory goes that that Charybdis, who was working with Baltar in sabotaging the Caprica defense computers for the Cylon attack, he was my uncle. Yes, he was my father's brother. And we had to kind of live down the shame and overcome the family name that he trashed, Uncle Charybdis. And I was named after him. That's the storyline. So that's why I'm Colonel Charybdis. That's where it comes from. And so it's just a lot of fun, but I've kind of appropriated that name for myself, but not because I was ever in league with Uncle Charybdis, right? He was bad. We don't like that he did that. But in any case, so Baltar is the only one who can identify Charybdis. And so he finally does, of course, at the end, and they exonerate Starbuck, because we know that. But this is a standalone episode. A lot of questions have been brought up. Well, look, this is the episode right after A Man with Nine Lives with Chameleon. And so a lot of questions have been made. Well, where's Chameleon? His new best friend now, but his son? And yet we don't hear from Fred Astaire as Chameleon. Again, this is kind of where it kind of got a little bad when you had guest stars like that, but they don't continue on. So, continuity is very important, and we don't get it in this case here, especially with a character that important. Starbuck's father. So you'd think, he'd be around, but nowhere at all. He just doesn't make any kind of appearance in the episode. So, not too good right there. Would have been nice to have had him. The second thing also is that, as we look at the case here, why does Starbuck look so nervous, right, afterward? And there's some timing issues there. I rewatched it right before I came on here. And, Ortega, they go in, and Starbuck goes in to take the turbo wash, to take the old shower and all that. And then, Ortega's getting dressed. And remember, Cassie had given Starbuck only, 10 centons or 10 minutes. He's a little late, but not that much late. But then, the next shot you get is Ortega, and there he is. He's facing off against an unknown assailant, and boom, he's killed. And so Starbuck then is seen running out. He runs into Cella, right? And then goes out there and he's acting very nervous. Well, my question is, how fast did Charybdis have to, remember, he had to go get Starbuck's weapon, come back. They were in different rooms because they went into different rooms for their turbo wash, and come back, shoot Ortega, but then they put the weapon back. So, I mean, he had to, if he did that, which he did, obviously, but, he had to do it pretty quickly because then Starbuck was coming out and Cella didn't see anybody and all that. So it was, it's a little questionable right in there on the timing. But ultimately, of course, we find out that's what it is. But the overarching kind of problem with this type of episode, and it goes way back to many other types of episodes like this, where one of the main characters is charged with murder and all this kind of stuff, and it looks really bad, and they're going to go to prison for the rest of their lives. And so the problem with that, just right from the get-go, is that we know that Starbuck did not murder the guy in cold blood, even in self-defense. He would have fought him and this kind of stuff. But we know that the premise is kind of flawed from the beginning. The only question is, okay, well, how are they going to get him out of it, right? And so that's what they do. The other aspect about this is colonial jurisprudence. Now, they have to convene the tribunal in 10 centaurs, which is 10 hours. It's like, what? That is like, how can you build a case in just 10 hours? That's just crazy. And of course, they did that because they needed to wrap it up before the end of the hour. This was just a 1-hour episode, so they had to do it. But I would have preferred to see him take a little bit longer time. They could time jump a few days. I mean, come on, they could do that. So we'll be there tomorrow. We'll be there the next 2 cycles. Whatever. And they could have done that to kind of lengthen it out a little bit, made it a little more believable. But only 10 centaurs, and so that's a little crazy. Colonial justice moves quick and swift, I guess. But that's Murder on the Rising Star. And then, of course, ultimately, the key scene. I always try to kind of focus on, well, what's the key scene? And the key scene in this episode is when Starbuck, he's kind of at his rope's end, right? They got him tried and convicted, as he says, on the IFB, on the TV screens, and in the coverage of the trial. They haven't even gone to trial yet, and he's guilty, right? And so what happens is he escapes. And Apollo encounters him in the launch bay, and that is the scene where Apollo starts talking to him and says, "What? They're not going to let you. Commander Dama's going to send us out after you. Are you going to fire on me or Sheba?" And Starbuck, he's talking tough, and he says, "Well, if I have to, whatever." But again, do you really believe if he has Apollo in the sights? Do you really believe he's going to shoot him? I don't think so. I don't think any of us would ever think that Starbuck would do that. And then that leads to, the line of lines, right? When he says, "Okay, go ahead and go. But I never thought Starbuck would run from anything." Oh, that's a zinger, man. That cuts him. That cuts him right to the bone because he knows it and he realizes it too. Yeah, he's Starbuck, man. He doesn't run for anything. He's like he puts up a good ploy, right? In another episode, Cassiopeia says, "Oh, you like to pretend they're dragging you by the bootstraps, but you can't wait to get out there." And he's an adventurer. He's a swashbuckler. He's Starbuck, and so that's right. And wow, what a line! Woo! And sure enough, that convinces him to he's going to trust Apollo and trust the system. And sure enough, it does work. And they come out and they find this guy, and they're trying to get him. They got one of these 3 guys, right? And so then they hatch the plan to let's get Baltar. He's the only one who can identify him. And so he's going to go pick up Baltar, Apollo, and he conveniently leaves the hatch open on the shuttle. And sure enough, Charybdis gets on board because he has to. He's going to, I guess, try to eliminate them both as well so he can continue on. And of course, it's found out that, yep, that was Charybdis after all. By the way, in case you missed it, very interesting little scene there in the very beginning when Commander Dama and Colonel Tai are sitting in the little lounge of the Rising Star watching the Triad game on TV. Charybdis is the guy who serves them their drinks, and he says he's going off shift, off duty in a few centons. Of course, we know what he was doing. He was going to kill Ortega. So that was a pretty neat little touch right there. So anyway, so that's how it ends up, right? Apollo does end up saving Starbuck, although through Baltar, who identifies Charybdis because Charybdis had to get rid of Baltar and Apollo. And so he took his chances, and sure enough, the gamble worked. Everybody at the tribunal heard it, and they kind of show like, yep, Charybdis was the one who did it, and Starbuck is left off the hook. So pretty cool episode. You know, it's the Perry Mason Matlock version of Battlestar Galactica, the law show where somebody was falsely accused, and we know it, but how is he going to get off? Maybe he is going to be sent up the river, you know, spend his life on the brig, falsely accused, but we don't believe that, and we know, of course, he wasn't. And so Starbuck is released at the end, and then everybody, you know, cheers him at the end when he gets back out on the Triad court. So one of those, the unofficial companion book that we talked about recently, they would conduct these episode polls, and I'll refer to that on virtually every one of these because they kind of ranked the episodes according to several years of polling data that they did. And Murder on the Rising Star consistently comes out pretty much at number 8 on the list, 8 out of 17. And so that's right smack dab in the middle for the most part. You know, it's not the greatest episode, no, but it's not the worst either. Pretty cool, right? I mean, you know, you look at it, it's neat, it's awesome. It's Battlestar Galactica. That's what we loved about it. So it's a great episode as well. Not one of the top, the highest of the highs, but it is still pretty cool. We're right there in the middle. A great Battlestar Galactica episode. So anyway, there you go. Murder on the Rising Star from February of 1979. And by the way, Frank Ashmore, the actor who plays Ortega, he came to maybe more fame as the alien from V, right? Martin in the miniseries V. And I remember watching that one. We were riveted on those nights when V ultimately came out. But he was seen, you could see him in a lot more shows, by the way, back in the 70s and 80s as well, as a lot of these guest stars were. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this one. Battlestar Galactica, remembered. Long live Battlestar, and I'll see you in the next video.